morning, good morning, good morning. So today we have a special one. As you can see, emergency debate, the death of the middle class. Only the top 1% will survive. Bam. Let me get the atom and everything sign going. Although it might be backwards to you guys, so I might need to flip it. We'll see. We ain't gonna do it in this first video. We're just recording and making it happen because these conversations need to be had. And if others don't want to have them, I will. It's necessary. And this particular conversation, as you can see, I'll come down a little bit. Hopefully, I'm not butchering their names, but Nick Hanor and Daniel Presley are two individuals who frequently speak about some of these income inequality issues, things that I care about. And that's, at the root of, I think, what this particular channel will primarily be focused on for the most part. But as the name suggests, it's Adam and Eve, everything. So we may not be limited to just income and wealth inequality, and more or less me tying in different areas that I think may potentially be connected in that sense, and or maybe just other topics that I think might indirectly align in some form or another with being able to still help with disrupting the current projection of this wealth disparity and income inequality issue that we're witnessing and currently living through and experiencing in 2026. So this is a long debate, 2 hours. I think you just saw it, 2.5 hours basically. So clearly, they got into it, and both of them have, a pretty, well, I don't know for sure, but they both have, some money. They're not just regular Joe Schmoes like myself, a regular, working class folk. So I say that to begin because I think people need to be mindful of this perception of race, class, sex, someone's net worth, as if those are the components that should make someone more qualified or, weighted, more valued than someone else who isn't necessarily meeting what some might consider the benchmark for these type of topics. Because oftentimes I can say a lot of what is discussed in this video, and just because of my appearance, right? I'm a male, I'm a black male who is not rich. So, I'm not in that top class. My net worth isn't, I'm not a millionaire. I'm again black. I'm a male, so that kind of, okay, the male part might be the only thing that works in my favor. But beyond that, it's generally, oh, you're bitter, or you hate all capitalists and you hate rich people. It's like, no, no one is saying anything of the sort. And so we're gonna kind of get into this video, and I have broken, I have a bunch of different clips from it. So we're not gonna go through this full 2.5 video in this format as a reaction video. And some we may take that approach, but not for this one. For this one, I want to jump right into this first clip to let you guys get a taste and a glimpse of what to expect. And I'll throw in my feedback as well and whatnot.
Have you heard of that?
No.
So that's a theory that is embedded in the center of economics, which says that because markets are efficient, the amount of money you earn reflects precisely the contribution that you make to it.
Okay, so if
That
I
you
earn
make
$15,000 a year, that's because I'm giving $15,000 of value
a
to the world.
value in the world.
Okay.
Correct. And if I earn $500 million a year, rubbing money together to make more money, that is an accurate reflection of the value I'm creating in the world.
Which is really central to capitalism, isn't
It
it?
is absolutely central to capitalism, and it is central to economic policymaking. But here's the thing. If you understand where that came from, it gives you pause. So in 1879, a guy named Henry George writes a book called Progress and Poverty in the United States.
Progress and Poverty.
Basically, it's the first book about the rich stealing from the poor. And this book isn't just a bestseller, it is the bestseller in the history of the United States. And the powers that be freak out. And J.P. Morgan brings this guy, John Bates Clark, to Columbia University, which is sort of the home of like Wall Street and stuff like that in New York, and says, fix this. And so Henry George writes a book called The Distribution of Wealth, in which he invents this idea called Theory of Marginal Productivity, which asserts this idea. But he says the quiet part out loud in the book. He says, look, we have to prove to working people that no matter how much they make, whether it's a little or a lot, it reflects their value. Because if they conclude that their work is worth more than they are paid, they will revolt and kill us all, and that would be bad. And that idea, will not surprise you to learn, was very attractive to a bunch of rich people and got swept up into economics, and today is a core idea in economic theory.
Man, 1879. This opening clip is so powerful, in the sense that it really does help to, show how long this current system has been in place the way it essentially is. Now, of course, there have been ebbs and flows of it kind of maybe swaying one way more than, other ways, in which I would say the past, 30, 50 years, it's gotten much worse, obviously, swaying one particular way, which is not towards pretty much anyone watching this video. That said, that was, just so fascinating to me, because it indicates that nothing going on now is like is an accident, right? Essentially, if this was something that was discussed that long ago and made that clear, like, hey, we don't want people to understand the value of their labor, does not truly necessarily correlate to what they may be paid, and let's convince them that that is the case. Man, that's so interesting, and I don't think enough people understand it. It's part of the reason. I get it it makes sense in terms of why things work the way they currently work, right? And why people, oftentimes, the millionaire capitalist who's saying, well, you don't provide enough value, and that's why you are struggling, da da da. And it's like, that's not true, because the guy who's responsible for cleaning the floor at the golf club, well, on those wet and rainy days when someone walks in, or maybe they're rushing, well, he's the individual who's helping to prevent you from slipping and falling and breaking your neck. And yeah, so do you think the value of that individual's labor is only worth whatever minimum wage they may be potentially getting? So, but this was such an interesting opening clip, I thought, to start with. And it's, again, I'm kind of just going in order with the actual full video as a whole anyway. But yeah, and what I'm going to do, actually, I'm actually going to let you guys see this next clip that I think keeps the ball rolling, right? Continues this conversation as all of the other ones will as well. But it keeps things moving in the direction it should be going.
And, a signal piece of that evidence for me, sort of a thing that really sort of galvanized my interest was that I got to look at the IRS tax tables in 2007, 2008, which showed American income shares and the history of that. And in 1980, the top 1% of Americans shared about 8.5% of national income. By 2007, that 8% had grown to 22%, as I recall. So triple, largely, as a share of national income. While the bottom 50% of Americans, their share fell from about 18% in 1980 to 12%
Wow.
in about 2007.
Wow.
And what I did is I took those numbers and I stuck them in a spreadsheet and said, what happens if this trend continues for another 30 years? And the answer is revolution. It's just arithmetic, because you cannot sustain a capitalist democracy if the top 1% controls 45 or 50% of income and the bottom 50% shares 5. This is not a deep,
it's not possible
political insight. This is just math. And I freaked out and decided that I needed to devote myself to trying to figure out why this happened and how you could fix it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think they do share some more updated numbers and whatnot, figures. But I have a feeling things are going to be much, much worse as a result of what we're currently experiencing right now in 2026 with this current administration and a lot of the policies that they've passed. So yeah, these numbers are only going to almost certainly be much worse. Now, part of the challenge with being able to prove more and more stuff like this is the fact that this administration has, is essentially actively making the effort to minimize and dismantle any sort of research, any sort of data, any sort of agencies that help to give more transparency and insight into these type of figures and these type of topics and conversations that will not show what's truly going on. So that's a big concern of mine in that sense, because those numbers, that is not good. No bueno, right? And the crazy thing is, majority of the policies that continue to ramp up this gap and help propel that top 1%, we kind of know it's generally coming from the conservative Republican Party. But like the thing that always is just like crazy to me is the number of people that vote for these policies and these individuals who are actually losing and actually suffering the most. It's just like, it's kind of frustrating to say the least, right? Because it's like you're hurting yourself, and not only yourself, you're hurting the rest of us too, as a result of the individuals that you're putting in office, that are running your city, your state, your the country as a whole. And it's like I don't want the channel to be about politics per se, but it kind of needs to be to some degree or another, because most of the policies that are passed that do the most harm tends to be from Republican and conservative party. Again, I'm an independent, not again, but as an independent, I do believe in some of the policies, some of the views and whatnot that are on that side of the aisle. And then I can look at the other side and say the same difference. I am a small business owner. So, we'll kind of get more into like more of my views and stance there in that regard, since it is somewhat spoken of in this video. But as you can see, this gap, I mean, it wasn't always this bad. This is something that's happened pretty much since 1980, as you can see, leading up to where we are today. And again, this chart in particular cuts short. So I have a feeling things are only worse because of the most recent policies and whatnot that have passed. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
I was raised in a civic family, I should say.
What does that mean?
It means a family that takes civic responsibility seriously. But we were middle-class people, and my father started to work for this tiny family business that his father had started, manufacturing bed pillows and down comforters, which is how I got my start in business. And to make an incredibly long story short, I had a very early intuition about the internet and the role that it would play in commerce. And as luck would have it, I had a friend who agreed with that proposition, and his name was Jeff Bezos. And so he wanted to start an e-retailer. He was working in New York for a hedge fund, dating one of my closest friends. And for a variety of reasons, he ended up sending his stuff from New York to Seattle to my house, and we started Amazon.com together. But from that, starting other tech companies. You know, I've helped run, manufacturing businesses, e-commerce businesses. My friends and I own a bank, and I think that very broad perspective on markets began to inform an intuition that everything that people are taught about economics today, that's sort of the conventional view, is a pack of lies.
Interesting. He's like, everything you have been taught basically is rubbish. And it helps give credibility into who this individual is, considering he helped start easily one of the largest companies, most successful companies here in the US, Amazon, with Jeff Bezos. And, the interesting thing is the fact that they're like, I mean, I'm sure they have many things in common, but clearly he's on one side of the aisle and Jeff Bezos is more or less on the other. And it's like, we all know about Jeff Bezos, right? And if anything, there was recently his comment talking about like no one should pay taxes or something like that. And in this case, we have the I mean, I don't like to make the reference of like the two-headed monster when thinking of kind of the political system here in the US. And I often will say, they're both connected to the same body. But there are levels to this, and one is certainly not as bad as the other. In this case, I don't want to say they're both, the same difference in that regard, because I think Nick is, from my research and from the content I've watched of his and heard him speak, he seems like a great guy. Everything he kind of stands for and represents, I think I kind of would wholeheartedly stand behind and with. I would not say the same difference with Jeff Bezos. And so, this I just thought carried some weight to it, this clip showing this, because it's not like, again, he's just anyone saying what he's saying, right? Coming from his position, and yet he's still saying, hey, like, I should be paying more. Like, my buddy Jeff should be paying more. Again, if I say a lot of these things, it's automatically like, oh, you just want to eat what do they say? Eat the rich or whatever. And it's like no, I just want things to be better for everyone and things to be more fair. and I thought, again, going back to that previous clip he mentioned regarding the perception of wealth creation within this, capitalism. that framework, I think is so fascinating. And a lot of this kind of goes back to that to some degree, because someone like Jeff Bezos is certainly in a position where he's like, yep, that's exactly what it is, and that's how it should be. And but who benefits from that most? Not you and I. The median worker should make $120,000 a year. $120,000.
So here's the most important socioeconomic fact in the United States, that the median full-time worker today earns in the range of $60,000 a year. If that person had maintained their same share of the economy since 1975, instead of earning $60,000 a year, they'd earn close to $120,000 a year. That effect, by the way, goes up to the 90th percentile.
All the way up to the 90th.
$180,000 in 2018, 2020, if you had maintained your same share of GDP, instead of earning 180, you'd earn like a $250,000 a year.
Man.
So in the United States, over 50 years, the only people who benefited directly from economic growth and productivity gains were the people in the top 10%, and the majority of benefit went to the top 1%. And that is the problem.
Yep. And this is what so many, like, what is so just crazy to me when it's normal or struggling Americans who continue to vote for policies and individuals that built a system like this, that literally have everything skewed to that top 1%. And considering the growth, as he said, $60,000 to 120, right? Like, it's crazy that 50% of their pay is gone. $60,000 right there. That's a lot of money. And even that other tier, I like that they had this comparison of the median going up to the 90th percentile. Because I think more often than not, it's almost as if, and I think it's all by design and intentionally done, but convincing people that are making six figures, like, hey, you're with us, so to speak. You're one of us. And then it's like anyone who's below that six-figure mark is like the other. And these are literally the type of like kind of debates or arguments I've had with friends, conservatives, Republicans, MAGA, whoever, where they won't necessarily say it, but you can sense and you can tell what they're suggesting. And more often than not, I'm like, buddy, you aren't making what you should be making today because of the way the system is. And it's just like, it's mind-boggling to me. But this is powerful because it helps you actually see with some real numbers and figures, like, hey, we all should be making more. How much more? Bam. If you're making 60,000 right now, you should be making twice as much. Imagine how much easier your life would be if you were making what you should be making. Yeah. So again, powerful stuff, right? Nick is dropping some gems, but I don't want to leave Daniel out, because Daniel, I don't always agree with everything he says. and I'm more willing to, or not willing, but I'm more, that being said, basically I can kind of dismantle or not dismantle, but I'll be kind of playing that tennis match, going back and forth more so with Daniel. But the underlying, I think, principle or theme that he touches on that I've noticed is kind of entrepreneurial business ownership. I agree with all of that. That I love, and I do wholeheartedly agree with. And, I'll let him kind of speak more on his thoughts on some of that.
I worry about all of these solutions that empower government because I don't trust government. My entire life has been one thing after the next made worse by government, right? That's my reality, born in 1981. I've never had a good experience with government.
Okay, but dude, you grew up in Australia and you live in the UK. If you hate government so much, move to the Congo.
Mm.
Seriously, you are. Look, I mean, it is just no one likes to be constrained. Everyone wants other people held to a high standard. And it just seriously, there is no libertarian paradise in the world where nobody follows any rules, nobody pays any taxes, and everybody lives like a king. If you hate government, there are 220 countries in the world. 150 of them effectively have no government. Why do you not move your base of operations to those places?
I mean, yeah, it's you know, people say that so much, and it's just like let's not make it out like it's like all government is bad, right? And let's not make it out like all regulations and policies are bad, because again, that's oftentimes what will happen on the other side. And it's like, no, some of this is necessary. Some of this is needed to prevent some people from skewing the system to make it more rigged and unbalanced than what it already is, to favor them, you know, to favor them even more. It's like, no, we need some sort of stipulations in these policies and whatnot in place to help prevent some of this from happening. So his argument, yeah, I like Nick saying, like, all right, go somewhere that doesn't have any government. Not the typical, like, oh, go to another country, you know, go to wherever. And oftentimes it's a place that has government. It's like, no, go somewhere that doesn't have any government then, if that's what you want. Why are you still here in Europe? Why are you still in the US? Peace. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And, you know, again, we got to just get back to Nick, because Nick is dropping them gems, right? Nick is dropping them gems.
Now, ergodic means, let me show you the difference between two games. One is ergodic, one is non-ergodic. Rock, paper, scissors is an ergodic game. And what that means is the outcome of the next game has nothing to do with the game before, right? Monopoly is a non-ergodic game. And in Monopoly, no matter how many times you go to Monopoly school, if you play a game of Monopoly long enough, one person will own everything and everybody else will have nothing. And that is what a market economy is. It is characterized by luck, path dependence, and compounding.
The past.
Well, it's the past, right?
Compounding.
Where you start,
Yeah.
right? Some of us started on third base. Some of us, like you, as I recall, started on actually first base or home plate or something like that.
Well, I think, yeah, probably second base.
Okay, maybe second base, but whatever. But we
I
can
had parents that loved me, electricity, house.
Yeah, okay, fair point, right? And you're very capable and good looking and all the rest of it, right? No, I mean, just if
I'd be
we're just
thinking,
being
like,
honest,
what about
right?
me?
We're just being honest. You had some natural advantages, but you know, in Monopoly, you land on Park Place the first roll, you're rolling. You get 4 good rolls in Monopoly, you're going to win the game, right? And compounding. The better you do, the better you do. And the thing about in a non-ergodic system is that both advantages and disadvantages compound. Surely you know people in your life who've had a couple of things of bad luck, right?
Yeah.
And then they spiral into oblivion, right? And so what that means is that a middle class and thus a high-functioning society with social cohesion is always a deliberate construction. It is always created by policy. Always.
It's intentional, right? The policies help to build it and safeguard it, essentially, and protect it as we're witnessing and experiencing. But again, the way he was breaking that down and thinking about it as, okay, you have rock, paper, scissors, shoot. You do that, you go, you know, rocks, paper, scissors, bam. If they come out with a rock, and that's that game is done. You have a fresh new slate to begin. The example of Monopoly, you know, and I grew up loving Monopoly, which is so interesting as I really reflect on kind of where I'm at today, how I think, the things I care about. You know, it's a game that was all about, like you said, devouring essentially the board and anyone you're playing against. It's like, It's what we're literally kind of going through and dealing with as you see, BlackRock buying up more homes. You see Elon wanting more. It's like, how much more do these folks need, right? How much more do you need? And I get it. Oh, money and all these things. You got to think in abundance. And who is it? Dan Martell recently had something saying about like wanting $1 billion isn't enough, and if you if you think that like that, there's something wrong with you or something of the sort. And I was just like, nah, I disagree. I don't think we all need $1 billion. I don't think anyone needs $1 billion, let alone $1 trillion, which is the trajectory of Elon, for example. So yeah, again, loving the gems that Nick is bringing to the table, helping to draw attention to these topics, these issues, and saying it like it is. Like, hey, the middle class and the lower class, like, yeah, or middle class. So the lower class is growing because you have less people in the middle class, which means where are they going? They're not all going up. Most of them are going down. So yeah, and the point around the policies that are passed being what helps to, again, safeguard those people speaks volumes. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, like, why do people continue to vote on some of these people that, and I get it. And what I'll kind of, I guess, throw out now that they don't speak on in this full 2.5 hour video, for the most part. There was one part they kind of mentioned, like luck, things like something of the sort, but nothing that really touches on, like I said, that intersection of race, of sex, of class. And I think that's what, like, for some reason no one's really talking about that, right? Because why. The people that are benefiting most have most control of kind of the media and the narratives that are being spoken on. And why would they want to speak on something that they're benefiting from, right? Keeping the system intact the way it is, where they continue to see this rapid growth while you and I continue to just, taking these little baby steps. They're taking leaps. So it makes sense. But yeah, it's not like you can't just like say, okay, we're just gonna just give up and just not make any effort, not try. And even, again, Nick, I'll share this clip here, big government versus small government, because some people are like, oh, just anti-government as a whole, and let's just get rid of all government. And it's like, no, you need, especially as you see all of the policies that have been rolled back regarding the environment, protecting our food, our water. It's crazy to me that it's like there's so little like uproar and people actually speaking about these things, because we're all negatively impacted by it. As some of us are much more impacted than others, of course. Others are quote unquote benefiting. But if all of our food and all of the water and all of the air is being polluted, that you're still losing. If you're shaving off 20 years of your life to live, yeah, okay, maybe you're going to make another 200,000 because of some of these policies passed, and maybe you have some investments with some oil fracturing company or whatever. I get it. The little trade-offs, I guess, seemingly are what those in control are willing to make when they're benefiting so much. So it's not necessarily little, but yeah, this is so fascinating when, again, you just kind of really reflect on the reason why things are what they are and the way it is what it is. And Daniel brings up a good point in this clip here that I think is something that needs to be spoken on about as well.
Absolutely, but we're confusing things. People are pissed off everywhere in the
Everywhere,
world.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Everywhere in the world.
I want the pitchforks to go away as well, but these workers' rights are not putting the pitchforks away. Like all of this stuff, we've given this stuff to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all of Western Europe, all the English-speaking democracies. Other than the USA is the only one that has virtually no safety nets and no safeguards. Everywhere else has healthcare systems that are much more generous and welfare systems that are more generous and like maternity leave. I mean, it's just inhumane that USA doesn't have maternity leave. So all of that stuff, but we've got all of that, but we've got the pitchforks here too.
Yes.
And this is why I'm saying I'm really zoning in on the idea that people need to own a house, they need to own a business, and they need to own shares. And it's like if they own stuff.
I could not agree more. And I don't know how to get them there unless they are paid well enough to do that.
Right.
Let me tell you an anecdote. During the George Floyd riots, people were burning stuff down in the United States, and there was this fantastic interview with this woman, and the reporter said, you know, I cannot believe that you don't have respect for property rights. And the woman said, we have no property.
Right.
You know, well, why should I respect property rights? No one I know owns anything.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I am 100% with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. This is why I said I agree with Daniel's underlying kind of beliefs around ownership, business, home ownership, right? But the problem clearly is that people can't afford homes because of the way the system is currently designed, right? If you're seeing the CEO pay, and I think there's we might kind of see something here. I don't know if they specifically, this next clip actually kind of will, I guess, touch on it, because ultimately it's like, and this is Nick's, what he's all about basically like, hey, wages, people aren't making enough. And clearly, you know, when you see how much CEO pay has gone up compared to what it was back in the day and versus average employees and stuff, it's like, it's not even comparable. And it clearly is suggestive of why, or indicative of why things are so bad, why the normal person is struggling to just afford living a comfortable life, let alone the white, you know, the house with the white picket fence and this, that, and the other. The policies, right, aren't supportive of preventing kind of just these ridiculous kind of distorted payouts. And, you know, as a small business owner, as someone who's self-sufficient, independent, but also works with other people sometimes, I don't, how do you say, I don't like screw them over, so to speak. I don't, and I get it. People say, well, if someone agrees to working at whatever rate, then you're not screwing them over. They agree to it and da. But it's like yes and no, right? I think there's kind of limits that, you know, it's like abusing the situation, I think, is where it's problematic. And that's what tends to happen on this larger corporate scale. So I don't think it's necessarily problematic when we're talking policies and like kind of businesses being what's helping to dictate or run the country. I think really the biggest problem is when it's the large enterprise, the largest corporations that are dictating the policies that tend to favor those same corporations and those same few people at the very top of those corporations, while their employees get paid peanuts. And then from there, again, similar to what Daniel's talking points align with, is ownership. It's harder. I mean, one, it's harder for companies to compete against monopoly, you know, with the Amazon or the Walmart, right? The mom and pop shop that was in towns all across countries have been crushed as a result of companies like Walmart and Amazon. Okay, so that's probably somewhat problematic, and I wouldn't be surprised if policies are factoring into that. That coupled with, again, how little employees and wages are compared to what they should be, and you know, and ultimately that what they should be portion goes back to, if someone says, well, where did all that money like, where did it go? That difference. It went to those at the top. The other aspect or problematic thing that they kind of speak about in this video later on as well is just touching on the principle of corporations in America are, for-profit corporations. Their main, primarily and sole kind of first objective is to make money for their investors. And there are so many companies that, like, just the typical American is kind of automatically invested in because of their company's 401k. So we're in this unique, weird position where it's like, okay, like, are people mad about this company doing well and whatnot and so forth because their 401k is tied to the success of these companies, which then when they go and look at their retirement, they're like, okay, this is where I'm at. Da, da, da. So a lot of this is, again, by design, and it's intentional because it's harder for someone to be vocal about something like that when literally their own, even though they don't work at that company, their personal retirement and net worth is whatnot is kind of directly tied to and influenced by what happens with said company. So things are complicated in that sense, right? But again, not as complicated as they could be or should be, and as they are. And I think part of what Nick addresses in this clip speaks on some of it as to why it is what it is and whatnot.
And what we have done is we have massively tilted the economic playing field, which once favored small and medium-sized businesses and local companies towards these giant corporations. We used to have an economy that actively encouraged small businesses and entrepreneurship. I mean, basically, what we call neoliberalism, this set of ideas around economic
neoliberalism
that came into force in the 70s and 80s. Reaganomics, Thatcherism, all this stuff.
There we
Cut
go.
taxes for rich people, deregulate powerful people, and suppress the wages for working people. Basically, trickle-down economics.
Trickle-down
Those
economics.
policies went into effect in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And what happened is a huge shift in concentration from smaller businesses to bigger businesses, and a huge shift in income from ordinary Americans to the very rich. And that's the core of the problem. And of course, I think rich people should pay their fair share. We should. It is ridiculous for somebody who make $500 million a year and to pay 15% tax rate. Somebody who makes $200,000 a year pays 40. I just
makes
think that's
no sense.
Stupid and wrong.
Yep.
Which is the case in the United States. May not be the case here in the UK. But the bigger problem is wages.
Wages. I mean, I don't think it's just wages, because that's what his Nick's underlying kind of talking point is around, and that topic of just wages. I don't think it's just wages. I think it's a collective, a combination of things. But yeah, this I thought was interesting because it again aligns with what we know small businesses are the backbone of this country, and what has helped to propel and make America what it is today, or what it once was, or what it could be. The problem is when you have these monopolies and you have policies, and as he's saying, trickle-down economics, Reaganomics and stuff. If all of the money, if every policies and everything is just skewed to favor those at the top, it's just weird to me that so many people think trickle-down economics will start to work all of a sudden when it hasn't worked for the past 30, 40, whatever plus years. It's just so strange. But this whole video, again, I'll have a link to it down below so you can watch the full thing. And there's a lot more that I'm not gonna dive in now, because what I believe is more or less, like I said, that these policies and whatnot. Let's change this. Try to see if I can change my the way I look and stuff. Maybe not. I'm doing this on the fly, so my first time using this particular software. So, yeah, like the policies and whatnot that tend to, am I still in it? I think I am. In any case, so yeah, the underlying issue I think here is more or less around the unwillingness for people to be more transparent about like what is happening for the people that know, and then for the people that don't know and that are just sheep and following the herd. It's like this is where more of this is necessary. It's needed because people just don't know. The more you know, the more inclined you'll be to make better informed decisions. Um, Everything that he shares here, it's backed by research and data, and it's not just opinions. So, I know a lot of people don't like facts as much as they claim they do when facts are actually presented. But in this case, they are what they are. And we want to acknowledge and recognize it and say, okay, well, how do we fix this? And this is part of what Nick is trying to do. They have a whole brochure and a document. And we'll kind of maybe dive into more of what I believe would be potential solutions as well, which we've kind of touched on in this video. But we'll do it in more depth in other videos, but around, yes, home ownership and business ownership, similar to what Daniel was saying. I agree with that. However, I think it goes beyond that. There needs to be some kind of restrictions or enforcement around, again, that wage gap when it comes to how much the CEO is being paid versus the typical employee, because it shouldn't be as high as it currently is. Beyond things like that, obviously, even basic things such as financial literacy not being taught within public school systems. That's clearly intentional. It's clearly by design, but we can change that, right? So just things like that, and more, of course. But you got to start somewhere, and I think just even having just an initial conversation that's starting to get this ball rolling beyond the few places where it is happening, I think is going to do wonders. And, excited to get this party started. So definitely subscribe if you haven't yet. Let me know what you guys think about this video, either of these two individuals, anything I've said. If you agree, do you disagree? Do you think more is needed? Do you have a actual solution, something that would just be more concrete and direct and say, bam, this will help solve X, Y, and Z? And then we can decide other things beyond those things. But this is the starting point. Let me know what you guys think. Appreciate you guys for watching. I'm excited to get this ball rolling. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.